And now it's time for Hobo Reviews with Willie B.A. Hobo. Tonight's review, Spider-Man 3. Oh my god, this is the best movie! Outside of the emo Peter Parker scene that I have seen in my whole life! Spoiler-Man does whatever a Spoiler-Man can. He makes spoilers! There's this guy named Peter Parker who has spider powers. Of course, you've already figured that out by now, mama. Until he's going out with Mary Jane, mama. Which you already figured out if you saw the end of the second movie, mama. So anyways, Mary Jane is getting tired of the fact that Peter Parker's always being Spider-Man. He has to live the double life. He either has to be Spider-Man or he has to fall in love with Mary Jane. The choice is yours, Spider-Man, mama. See, this is why Batman can never have a girl, mama. That's why he chose the path he chose, but you chose the path that you chose, mama. You're kind of like Batman, except you're not Batman, mama, because you're a wuss compared to Batman, mama. Anyways, there are 3 new villains. The first one that you see is the Green Goblin. And I know what you're thinking. There already is a Green Goblin. But this is no ordinary Green Goblin. This is Harry's son becoming the new, not Harry's son, Harry's dad's son, which is Harry. He is the new Green Goblin because Harry's dad was like, I've had me. And Harry was like, no. But he still avenges him. And says, you knew this was coming, Pete. As Peter was coming home to give Mary Jane a engagement ring, mama. Oh, wow, really? You're going to pop the big question, mama. Guess how that's going to work out? Well, you'll find out. Anyway, so Peter and Harry go back and forth, duking it out, battling, until Harry gets knocked out into a hospital and loses his memory, which means he doesn't remember being the Green Goblin. Then Spider-Man gets a celebratory parade, and he kisses Gwen Stacy in the face, and they kiss Mary Jane in the first movie. This, of course, makes Mary Jane rage with jealousy. Do you know how Playmobil Boy would have mentioned this scene? He probably would have said something like, the two should have mud fighted or something like that, and then added the guacamole part at the end, although I don't know what the hell is wrong with guacamole. Anyways, so Mary Jane is jealous because Peter Parker is letting the fame get into his effing head. Gee, that kind of reminds you of Hercules, mama. Man, this movie ripping up a bunch of other movies that you probably remember, but you never noticed until I mentioned it now. Anyways, so Spider-Man ends up getting this alien symbiote on his costume, and he becomes the alien symbiote Spider-Man. How fucking awesome is that? I absolutely enjoyed Spider-Man in a black costume. He looks badass. Not to mention intimidating. Well, maybe a bit intimidating, though not as intimidating as, say, Batman, per se. Anyways, he uses his new powers to attack the same man and pummel him to the ground. Except, unfortunately, it also did this to Peter Parker. Changed his attitude to the point where now he's emo Peter Parker shredding like the guy from Grease. Ugh, that is the one scene I will despise for the rest of my life, mama. Anyways, this forces Mary Jane to say, you know what, fuck it, Peter's not right for me. Screw the engagement ring, all that bullshit. I'm going to go out with Harry, who's still recovering from his injuries. And then Harry discovers from his father's spirit that he has to attack Spider-Man. So guess what? He regains his memory. Emo Peter Parker comes in and absolutely blows his face off with one of his pumpkin bombs. Well, at least Emo Parker's badass, but I still hate Emo Peter Parker. After that, Peter Parker decides that the alien suit is not right for him, so he decides to take the alien suit off, and he does it with sound. Bell sounds. As in the ringy bell in the church. If you've not seen the animated series, then you need to go see it, because this is pretty much based on the animated series of mine. So anyways, the symbiote suit is free of Peter Parker and falls right into Eddie Brock, who unfortunately is played by Topher Grace. Good God, why did you get a wimp of a nerd, mama, to play big tough Eddie Brock? Anyways, the symbiote hits Eddie Brock and he becomes Venom. which you probably already knew if you were a comic book geek, like me, mama. Anyways, so then Venom is becoming the new enemy. He knows everything about Peter Parker, so Peter Parker cannot sense where his whereabouts, and so the Venom it becomes a dangerous threat, and then teamed up with the Sandman, Spider-Man is outgunned and outnumbered. Then he gets help from the Green Goblin! Yes, that's right. Harry learned the truth. His daddy was a bad guy. He tried to kill Peter Parker. He ended up killing himself in the process. So thus, Spider-Man is not a bad man. His father was a dickhole. So after discovering that from his butler of all people, Harry decides to team up with Peter and the two go after Venom and the Sandman. The Sandman learns the truth about his daughter. Actually, he tells Peter about what happened the night that his uncle got murdered, and so the two patch things up. Meanwhile, the Venom is about to kill Peter Parker until Harry sacrifices his life to save Peter's. Unfortunately, he dies. Well, of course he's gonna die. Mortal wound, you think? Anyways, Peter uses the mental rods and clangs them together like the ring of the bell in order to get the symbiote off of Eddie Brock, which he does. Then he uses one of Harry's pumpkin bombs to try and destroy the symbiote, and he goes back to try and get the symbiote, and thus he goes kablooey along with the symbiote. Harry then falls to his death with Peter and Mary Jane on their side. Mary Jane continues to sing in a cafe until she discovers Peter. She stops singing and then the two dance and they live happily ever after, and we never get to figure out if they patch things up or not. I, for one, love this movie. Except for the emo Peter Parker scene, which I'm sure everybody hates. This is Willie B.A. Hobo saying, Spider powers! You got spider powers? Come on up and girl, will you? Come on, spider powers! Come on! I want to be like Peter Parker and have spider powers, and I'm gonna beat evil!